Hello students, today we are going to study 6th chapter of ninth class. The name of the chapter is tissues. In the previous chapter we have studied about the cells, as we know that the fundamental unit of life and the structural unit of the life is cells. There are the unicellular organism and multicellular organism, and cell have the definite function which is the useful for the life activities. Now in this chapter we will study how the different type of cell aggregate and to form a tissues, and what are the functions of the different tissues in plants as well as in animals. Learning outcomes. At the end of this chapter, student will be able to define tissue and state the importance of tissues and different type of the tissues, and also classify different type of the plant tissue and differentiate between meristematic tissue and permanent tissue. Compare different type of simple permanent tissue and complex permanent tissue. Classify different type of animal tissues like as epithelial tissue, connective tissue, muscular tissue and nervous tissue. Classify epithelial tissue on the basis of structure, function and location, and also represent it with the diagram. Also identify various type of connective tissue, muscular tissue and nervous tissue. And student will also able to explain difference between plant and animal tissue. From the last chapter, we recall that all living organisms are made up of cells. In unicellular organism, a single cell performs all basic functions. For example, in amoeba, a single cell carries out movement, intake of food, gaseous exchange, and excretion. But in the multicellular organism, there are the millions of the cells. Most of these cells are specialized to carry out the specific functions. Each specialized function is taken up by the different group of the cells. Since these cells carry out only a particular function, they do it very efficiently. For example, in human beings, muscle cells contract and relax to cause the movement. Nerve cells carry messages. Blood flows to transport oxygen, food, hormones, and waste material, and so on. In case of the plants, vascular tissue conduct food and water from one part of the plant to other parts. So, multicellular organisms show division of the labor. Cells specializing in one function are often grouped together in the body. This means that a particular function is carried out by a cluster of the cell at a definite place in body. This cluster of the cells, called tissue, is arranged and designated so as to give the highest possible efficiency to function. Blood, phloem, and muscles are the example of tissues. So in nutshell, we can define tissue is a group of cells having the similar structure and function. For example, in case of the plant and animal, cell grouped to form the tissue. All the animals and plants, there are different type of the cell, and the cell with the similar function to form the tissues. For example, in the human being, the cell of muscular tissue contract and relax and help in the movement. In plant, the cell of the vascular tissue conduct water and food from one part of plant to other part of plant. As in this picture, you can see the how the organization of the life occurs. First, as we know that the cell is the functional unit of life, then the different type of the cell which have the similar function perform and aggregate to form the tissue aggregate to form the organ form the organ system is the group of the organ working together to perform the specific job. After the organ system there is the formation of the organism means there is the combination of the different type of the organ system. For example, human is a organism in human there are the different type of the cell which perform the different function, and group of the cell perform the tissue, and tissue perform different function, and tissue aggregate to form organ aggregate to form the organ system in human, such as there are different type of organ like as the muscular organ, like heart, like kidney. They are the different organ, and all these perform specific function and coordinate and to form the complete organism. There are the two type of the tissues. First is plant tissue and second is animal tissue. Now we will study firstly plant tissue. What are the plant tissues? Plant tissue, we will study this with the help of flowchart. Plant tissue, there are the mainly two type of the plant tissue. First is meristematic tissue, second is permanent tissue. Meristematic tissue means dividing tissue which divide throughout the life cycle. Second is permanent tissue which lose the ability to divide further. Okay. Meristematic tissue can be also further divided into the three tissues. First is apical meristematic, second is lateral meristem, third is intercalary meristem. And permanent tissue, there are the two type of the permanent tissue, simple tissue and complex tissue. Simple tissue is further divided into the three tissues. First is parenchyma, second is collenchyma, after that sclerenchyma. And complex tissue divided into the two, xylem and phloem. Now we will study all these tissue one by one. Plant tissues. Plant tissues are present in the plants. They perform the specific functions. There are the different type of the plant tissues. Mainly, we can divide plant tissue in two types. First is the meristematic tissue, second is permanent tissue. First is meristematic tissue. Meristematic tissue means which divide throughout the life, which have the capacity to divide throughout the life is called meristematic tissue. This type of tissue occurs in the plants. There are the three types of the meristematic tissue. First is the apical meristematic tissue, second is intercalary meristematic tissue, and third is lateral meristematic tissues. Second is permanent tissues. Permanent tissues means which lose the capacity of dividing of the cell. There are the mainly two type of permanent tissue. They are the simple permanent tissue and complex permanent tissue. Meristematic tissue. As we know that meristematic tissue is the tissue which have the dividing capacity, and this type of tissue found in growing region of the plants like as the tip of root, stem and branches. They divide continuously and help in growth of the plants. There are the three types of meristematic tissue. First is apical meristematic tissue. Apical meristematic tissue are present in the tip of stem and root. They help in growth of stem and root. The apical meristematic tissue you can see the in the region of tip of stem or root. It mainly help into growth of plant by which there is the elongation growth of plant occur. Second is lateral meristematic tissue. Lateral meristematic tissue are present inside of the stem and root. They help in to increase the girth of stem and root. So the function of the later meristematic tissue is mainly to increase the girth of plant, by which the plant girth increase, and apical meristematic help in elongation growth of plant. Third is intercalary meristematic tissue. These tissues are present at the base of the leaf and internode and help in growth of those part of plant, like as the this type of the meristematic tissue mainly present in the grass plant. In this picture you can see the position of different meristematic tissue in the plant. In this you can see the topmost part of plant have the apical meristematic tissue which help in increase the height. After that there is the intercalary meristematic which is present on the base of the leaf and present between the internode, and it help in also elongation growth in the grass family. Mainly it elongate the internode distance. Third is the lateral meristematic tissue. These are present on the sides of the stem and root, and its function is to increase the girth of stem and the root.